Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this joint presentation brought to you by SABR Elysian Fields and SABR's Baseball and the Arts Committee. My name is Donna Muscarella. I am the chapter president for Elysian Fields, and on behalf of my vice president, Paul Semendinger, as well as Joanne Hulbert and Jay Hurd, the co-chairs of SABR's Baseball and the Arts Committee, welcome. Before we get to the intro of tonight's speaker, I'm going to turn things over for a moment to Joanne Hulbert, who's going to talk a little bit about one of the initiatives that Baseball and the Arts offers.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for giving us the opportunity in order to make sure that everybody knows about this particular publication that comes out by way of SABR. Now, it's not one of those big ones. And for instance, I'm holding up here volume number 1, which was done way back in the year 2019. So that's when we started to have these published. Now, there have been 4 editions so far. Another is in process as we speak. Now, what is Turnstile, as it is called, the SABR Journal of Baseball Arts? Well, this is a rather unique publication coming out of SABR. It is not about hits and strikes and scores and stats and all of that, although sometimes those things do sneak into it. But this is for creative fiction, for things such as poetry, memoir, and all sorts of literature that is connected with baseball. Now, they have been writing fiction and stories, even romances, all the way back to the 1850s. So it's nothing new, but it is relatively new for SABR to take up this particular genre and make it available to SABR members and beyond. Now, one thing to know about how we put this all together, I suppose you could say, Turnstile is a smaller size publication. It's just sort of a 6x9 or so, but we are limited to about 100 pages in around that area. There are several editions of it. There is, of course, the print edition. There is also a PDF that you can get on SABR, and you can also get a Kindle edition. Now, the really good one, if you are a little bit hesitant about just what this is all about, will go into the SABR site and get a look at it from the PDF point of view. What it contains is a variety of stories that are written by SABR members. One of our hard and fast rules, more or less, is that this is limited to members of SABR. Occasionally do get a few interlopers along the way, but we always very, very sternly and firmly encourage them to join up for SABR if you want to get it in. Now, the reason is we don't have to go begging around for submissions because the SABR membership has provided us with more than enough submissions. So that has always been sort of the easy part of it. But we do occasionally find people coming in and without realizing that that's kind of like a hard and fast rule. They got to read the requirements and all. Now, the other thing is we have a few other guidelines and parameters for it. In other words, we would like to see 1,500 words or less. If you're going to go any further on that, and then maybe you ought to think about publishing your book. So that's pretty much our limits on it. So 1,500 or less, and we kind of like to say or less, because actually some of our really, really, really interesting and good stories have been less than 1,500 words. Then we also like poetry. We do have art. For instance, card art is a big part of what has gone into these books. And there's also the outside chance that maybe one of your bits of art will end up on the cover. You never know. Could happen. So the thing is, if you are curious about it, the best way to look at it is go to sabr.org and take a look in publications and just get sort of an idea about what the feel on the book is. And I think that you will be quite interested to see what it is. Now, over the years, we have, I will say that we have used some works of literature that we have asked non-members that we have seen out there, sort of as I guess you could say it's kind of an encouragement and inspiration for the other people who are reading it and writing also. For example, last edition, we did have a poem in the beginning, a part of the introduction, and it's on page 1 as it is, and it's a poem from a very, very interesting writer by the name of E. Ethelbert Miller. And Jeff Brain, of course, is here also, and I thank him for inviting inviting him to the last poetry festival that was held in May in Worcester, Mass. And he did attend that, and he's quite an impressive and very interesting man to talk to. And we were really, really fortunate to get one of his poems in the front of it. And there are others out there we kind of like reach out to in order to gain maybe a little bit of inspiration and addition for the benefit of our readers. But we do focus specifically, though, and encourage SABR members to submit their work. And that is what the basis of Turnstile, the SABR Journal of Baseball Arts, is all about. So if anybody has any questions, let me know. And also, Jay Hurd, my compadre in this, is also attending tonight. So I think he ought to throw in a few words too while he's at it.
Sure, I was. Thank you, Donna, and thank you, Joanne.
Yeah,
Regarding Turnstile,
yeah.
we try to have a firm deadline for submissions, and we can be flexible with that. But having said that, we receive enough submissions to fill, as we're going for issue 5. We have
Yeah.
enough to fill issue 5 right now. So
Yeah.
any beyond that deadline will be considered for issue number 6. So we don't say, sorry, you're too late.
No.
If we appreciate what's been sent, and for the most part, we're very pleased with what we receive, then
Mhm.
we will go on to the next issue. And that's it's not pressure on SABR or Publications editor to go ahead with another issue. We're not putting pressure on them. Say, see, we have all these people, so you have to publish. What has happened is that Turnstile has become one of the more popular publications within SABR, and has quickly risen to a top 10 of ebooks being retrieved. So yeah, through SABR. And we're very pleased with that, but it does speak to the quality of the literature that we receive, the photography, the artwork, and the attention given to it. And we don't hesitate to, as Joanne was just saying, to hesitate to reach out to poets who may want to include something in the introduction. And we're talking to someone right now about the person I met at the Negro League conference in Louisville, who offered some poetry, and I hope we can have one of his poems. I think that I'll just keep his name anonymous for the moment before we get the final approval from his publisher, but it should be a great addition. And one other thing that we have added to Turnstile for this issue number 5, is a book review. And we're hoping to do more of that. So I will throw that out to everyone. If you have a baseball book that you would love to review, uh,
Yeah.
keep us in mind. But again, thank you all for giving us time to talk about Turnstile, Baseball and the Arts. And Donna, thank you so much for this, for your work.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's
Okay.
my pleasure to have you guys here with us. I was fortunate and honored to have contributed to the 3rd edition of Turnstile, which was the pandemic issue. So that was an interesting one, and I will tell everybody, Joanne and Jay are an absolute delight to work with, in terms of their editing and in terms of their flexibility, in terms of making sure that your work is being represented the way you envision it being represented. So I really strongly encourage, if you are an artist, whether it be an artist with a camera, with a brush, with a pencil, with a keyboard, reach out to them and figure out a way to get your work out there. On that same note, if you are an artist in any of those ways or others that maybe I haven't mentioned, we feature in 11th Street Eagle, our chapter newsletter, a feature that we call In Our Wheelhouse, In My Wheelhouse, sorry, that showcases the artwork of members of our chapter. So if you have something that you'd like to share with us, a poem, a drawing, a photo, please reach out to Craig Garrettson, who is our amazing editor-in-chief, who does a tremendous job with our newsletter. You can reach him at 11th Street Eagle at gmail.com and let him know that you'd like to contribute to one or more of our issues. We publish quarterly. All that.
One thing, Donna, just before
Yeah.
you kick me off here. No, I want to put a shout out to somebody else who is here, at this Zoom meeting and everything, and that's Francis Kinlaw is here, and he is one of our stalwart contributors. And he's been since, I think he's 2, 3, and 4. I believe he's done 3 out of the 4 anyway. And we can always count on him on putting in another one of his great masterpieces. He does fantastic. And look him up. He's in the next edition too.
Cool.
So, all right.
Joanne, do you have a publication date yet?
No, we have not received it yet. I kind of have to confess, it's going a little bit slow this time. It's all been submitted and everything, and we're Jay and I are just sort of sitting here twiddling our thumbs, waiting for the next shoe to drop to see when.
Okay.
We do have a meeting though with the powers to be at the end of the week, and we'll see how it goes. Let's put it that way.
Yes.
Okay, well, I look forward. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, Jay, go
No,
ahead.
no, we'll be meeting with Cecilia Ten on Thursday.
Yeah.
And we've just met she's on sabbatical for one thing, so
Yep.
it's a little challenging. But we need to clarify a few things, and but we do have a draft ready for review. So that's we're on the way, and we hope by the end of the week we will be able to announce a publication date.
Well, I look forward to seeing the finished product, as I'm sure many others do as well.
Yes.
Okay. Without further ado, we're going to get to introducing our guest tonight, and I'm going to use my glasses for this. So, our presenter tonight is North Jersey resident and member of SABR Elysian Fields, Keith Danish. A retired attorney who specialized in intellectual property law, Keith is a proponent of lifelong learning. He's lectured on numerous topics, including baseball's business, labor, and cultural history. Keith's hobbies include photography and biking. You might even spot him cycling his way from Jersey to Yankee Stadium. Welcome, Keith.
Thank you. Thank you. What do the comedians say? We're running late, folks, so good night. Okay. All right, I'll move on. So is this a baseball talk? In the way that you're sure in the way they talk about the novel Moby Dick is a whaling talk. As you heard, I've lectured on various aspects of baseball in the past. This time I want to explore how baseball has affected our language, our fiction, our poetry, why it has appealed so much to writers. And even in baseball's reality, there's a lot of art and myth, and the language of the game is just so American. Now, I'll read to you some poems, mostly. I can't get into reading you long stories because of the time limits, and I can't go into extra innings. I'm not going to recite Casey at the Bat. We've heard that already. If there's time, I'll mention some parodies of Casey. But Casey's popularity in the 1880s was evidence of baseball's importance in America, even though it was 2 words back then. So let's play ball. And my clicker died on me, but I can use something else, I hope. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Is everything dying on me? No. Okay, this is a New Yorker cartoon. The guy's yelling, "Take me out to the ball game," to the cabbie. "I don't care if I never get back." Over the years, the New Yorker has printed much erudite baseball fiction and nonfiction, and many cartoons about the game. So much of the nonfiction writing about baseball is of high literary quality. One writer refers to prose ball to encompass baseball fiction and nonfiction. In this way, the intellectuals provide their imprimatur for baseball, indicating it's not only a game. Roger Angell, the poet laureate of baseball, was a fixture at the New Yorker magazine for many years. His essays were artistic and definitely not bathed in nostalgia or sentiment. He cared deeply about the game. He said, "Since baseball time is measured only in outs, all you have to do to succeed utterly, keep hitting, keep the rally alive, and you have defeated time. You remain forever young." Sports are important. We know this. Sports is Oprah for guys, woven deep into American life. Sports are fun. Sports are childish. Sports is big business, big ratings. Sports can take over your life. Sports talk can be a lingua franca, a common language between guys, gals too. So it's no surprise that sports themes have worked their way into fiction and poetry. Sports are important, but life goes on. Here's a poem, an old poem. "If Ruth next May returns to play and knocks 'em far and high, the birds will sing their songs of spring beneath a smiling sky. If Ruth next May declines to play, as in the days of yore, the birds will sing their songs of spring as they have sung before." That's from 1922. Well, it's only a game, but baseball does provide a structured, flowing world to people who may need such orderliness, like guys like Joey from Bayside or Fred from Tom's River, who phone into sports talk radio. Their obsessive attention to baseball and other sports may be making up for emptiness in their, quote, real lives. This alternative universe of sports world, it's grist for the mill of writers such as Robert Coover, who wrote the novel The Universal Baseball Association, about a man who created an entire fantasy baseball league with cards and dice, which takes over his life and becomes more real than his life, and whose story deals with issues like free will and destiny. Perhaps Coover was inspired by Einstein's statement that God does not play dice with the universe. And that novel by Hoover anticipated the world of fantasy baseball, which went from hobby to big business. The national pastime is or was baseball. Here's a poem by Linda Pastime. "When you tried to tell me baseball was a metaphor for life, the long dusty travail around the bases, for instance, to try to go home again, the sacrifice for which you win approval but not applause, the way the light closes down in the last days of the season. I didn't believe you. It's just a way of passing the time," I said. And you said, "That's it. Yes." First appearance of baseball in literature, in the beginning, in Genesis. And Ecclesiastic. This inspired the great book about the glory of their times by Larry Ritter. That comes from Ecclesiastics, about "Let us now praise famous men who were the glory of their times. Their bodies are buried in peace, but their names liveth forevermore." Other names liveth forevermore are Cobb, Ruth, Mathewson, Gehrig, Mantle, Williams. Are they not living forevermore? Novelist John Updike had to use supernatural imagery when he reported for the New Yorker on Ted Williams' final game for the Red Sox when Ted homered, refused to come out for the applause, to acknowledge the cheers. Updike said simply, "Gods do not answer letters." So we'll see. Baseball fiction went from portraying players in idealized role models for boys to emulate, to multi-dimensional figures with feet of clay, as in real life. We went from Christy Mathewson, the Christian gentleman, to Pete Rose, the gambler and tax cheat, and Barry Bonds, the steroid-tainted Homer champ. Fiction and mythology define the origins of baseball. Here's a 1937 poem. "O Abner of the Doubledays, in far-off fields Elysian, your claim to fame is called a foul by later-day decision. Some prying archaeologists have gone and found some traces of baseball's footprint, ages old in sundry English places." Yeah, baseball evolved from earlier games like rounders, and cricket, town ball, old cat, base, and the Massachusetts game. Maybe the first baseball poem comes from A Little Pretty Pocketbook from England, 1744. "The ball once struck off, away flies the boy to the next destined post, and then home with joy." Sounds like baseball. So Doubleday did not invent baseball in 1839. Even the Hall of Fame will concede that. As we know, Abner Doubleday didn't invent baseball. Baseball invented Abner Doubleday. Here's the historic marker in Hoboken, New Jersey, the site of the Elysian Fields. May exaggerate the historical importance of that game that was played there by the two New York clubs in 1846. But for our purpose, it's the name of the site, the Elysian Fields, that contributes to baseball's transcendent mythology. The Elysian Fields was the final resting place of the souls of the heroic and the virtuous in Greek mythology and religion, an idyllic paradise where gods and nobles spend eternity making music, singing, and even playing sports in eternal bliss. The Elysian Fields and the pastoral beauty of Cooperstown, New York, and its Lake Otsego, two idyllic sites for baseball's great origin myth. The classic monomyth: you leave home on a great journey, you fight the wars, and hopefully you return home to collect your reward, such as free agency. Well, so much of baseball seems to be mythical. John Thorne, the official historian of baseball, says, in no field of American endeavor is invention more rampant than in baseball, in whose whole history is a lie from the beginning to end, from its creation myth to its rosy models of commerce, community, and fair play. Yet we love both the game and the flim-flam because they're both so American. Stephen Jay Gould said, "In what other world is myth so harmless? Great battles kill and maim, great homers and no-hitters are pure joy or deep tragedy without practical consequence." And I've added, unless you bet on the game. Remember, baseball is not just MLB. Now it's the bananas, the minors, the semi-pros, the Negro leagues, Little League, high school, college ball, barnstorming, and those kids playing in the sandlots or on the streets with the broomstick and the rubber ball. All kinds of ball games have been featured in prose and poetry. Many a writer's dreams and metaphors were first shaped in a schoolyard or backlot game, and where he first encountered tragedy, namely that he was not going to be a big leaguer himself. T.S. Eliot could not have been a baseball fan. He starts the poem The Wasteland saying, "April is the cruelest month." No, it isn't. It's the beginning, at least it used to be the beginning of baseball. Now it's March. Now, Ogden Nash, the American poet, wrote a series of short poems called The Lineup for Yesterday. We'll refer to a few of them today. He was featuring great players of the past and his era. And he started with A for Alex, Grover Cleveland Alexander. The great Alexander, more goose eggs he pitched than a popular gander. I must mention Tinker to Evers to Chance, because we learned something from it. And as you know, this is a sad Giants fan watching the Cubs double off his team and spoiling their chances for a pennant. This poem may have been the decisive kick that got these three gentlemen into the Hall of Fame in 1946. And what is a gonfalon? Were the three gentlemen ruthlessly pricking our gonfalon bubble? A gonfalon is a heraldic flag or a banner. The gonfalon bubble was the Giants' dream of winning the league pennant being pricked. And here's Mr. Evers in the Ogden Nash series. E is for Evers, his jaw in advance, never afraid to tinker with chance. Evers did have quite a substantial jaw, as shown in the drawing. And I'm sure you must know the trivia question, who played third base with Tinker, Evers, and Chance? Harry Steinfeld. Baseball, this is from Damn Yankees. Baseball's the song 6 months out of every year. The poor abandoned wife complaining that her husband disregards her completely for 6 months out of every year. Well, he's a fan of the lowly Washington Senators in the 1950s, based on the novel The Year the Yankees Lost the Pennant. That poor fan, of course, sells his soul to the devil to become a great young star, Joe Hardy, who can lead his Senators to conquer the hated Yankees. And in real life, when Tommy Lasorda's wife complained that he loved baseball more than he loved her, he replied, I guess that's true, but hey, I love you more than football and hockey. So the length of the season, including spring training and the postseason, leads some to analogize the baseball season to a novel. War and Peace or Moby Dick come to mind. For most teams, it will be a tragic novel. For Yankee fans, there often seems to be enough foreboding and foreshadowing of ultimate tragedy to match a classic like Anna Karenina. The great writer John Updike had some things to say about baseball, about how it looks easy from a distance, easy and lazy even until you stand up to the plate and see the fastball sailing inside an inch from your chin. Updike said, what baseball means to me is standing as a child on third base of our local softball field and praying that no ball would be hit my way. Even a softball seemed hard to me, and what came up to the plate in a hardball game looked like a bullet. So maybe there are two types of boys and men. One prays the ball is not hit his way, while the other is eager to make the big play. What about the old sentiment that what matters most is sportsmanship? As told by Grantland Rice, when the one great scorer comes to mark against your name, he writes not whether you won or lost, but how you played the game. But Ring Lardner's son John saw it differently. Right or wrong, it's all the same. When baby needs new shoes, it isn't how you play the game, it's whether you win or lose. So, back when baseball stories used to be called horsehide operas, when the ball was made from horsehide, not cowhide. And I grew up on the Chip Hilton baseball story, precursor of modern serious baseball fiction, sports version of the Hardy Boys. Chip was this clean living high school athletic star in 3 sports who taught us all about fair play, hard work, respect for authority. In the footsteps of Horatio Alger and Frank Merriwell and Baseball Joe, all pulp fiction heroes from the turn of the century. And Ring Lardner's best-known book, You Know Me, Al, This is baseball is now becoming more modern. Another favorite from him was Alibi Ike, the ball player who can't stop making excuses for his errors. With his background in sports writing, Lardner was able to paint a realistic and satirical picture of baseball in fictional form, mixed in with real players. His use of vernacular speech was on a par with Mark Twain's. He was the first writer to achieve both popular and critical recognition for baseball fiction. You Know Me Al is the diary of one Jack Keefe, a busher, seeking to make it in the big leagues, country boy in the city. New Yorker writer Adam Gopnik notes that the laconic, tight-lipped style and the loquacious irony found in American prose was derived from sports writers like Lardner, Runyon, Liebling, and Angel. Let's rush over to postmodern baseball fiction. Early in the 20th century, when MLB took its present form and the World Series captured the public's attention, writers could not fail to notice baseball's dramatic potential. Initially, baseball fiction was optimistic and inspirational, but it grew more adult, especially after World War II, and post-war realism, uncertainty, cynicism, absurdity, and existentialism entered the arena. Also, with television displacing radio as the main medium for viewing the game, fans could directly see the players and aspects of the game, such as its whiteness. Later, movies about the game became so exciting and popular, there was concern that writing about the game would be replaced by film and digital presentations thereof. So what is postmodern baseball fiction? Just briefly, examples, Bernard Malamud's The Natural, a standout example. The hero, Roy Hobbs, fights to get back into baseball, well past his prime, because in his youth he had been shot by a lady stalker. I think we all know that story. The novel is about the failure of the American dream, about corruption and materialism. Roy's final thoughts are, I never did learn anything out of my past life. Now I have to suffer again. I mentioned Robert Coover's Universal Baseball Association. Coover is a master of the postmodern meta-fiction, which undermines literary conventions. His novel comments on the role of divine intervention and shared myths, all emanating from that tabletop universe. Baseball is featured, of course, in Bang the Drum Slowly, about a dying ball player. I'll just note another postmodern master was Don DeLillo. He wrote Underworld, and its first section, Pafko at the Wall, became a standalone short story. It's a fictional treatment of the thrilling 1951 playoff game between the Giants and Dodgers, won by Bobby Thompson's home run, the shot heard round the world. Parts of Underworld involve the search for the historic home run ball, with a background of life in Cold War America and its cultural grotesquerie. DeLillo also imagines J. Edgar Hoover sitting at the playoff game and being informed of the Soviet Union's first A-bomb detonation, another shot heard round the world. Philip Roth, the late Philip Roth, wrote much about baseball's importance to him during his childhood. It was a kind of secular church, reached into every class and region of the nation, and bound millions upon millions of us together in common concerns, loyalties, rituals, enthusiasms, and antagonisms. In college, Roth discovered literature, particularly fiction, and drew a parallel with his childhood infatuation with baseball, saying perhaps baseball, I'll just shorten this, perhaps baseball was the literature of my boyhood. Roth wrote The Great American Novel, a satiric view of the pretensions of many baseball novels and the rather pompous goal of creating a great American novel. His protagonist takes us through a deflation of the legends of macho and camaraderie upon which sports lovers have been raised, exposes the beloved boys of summer for dirty old men and dirty young men. And he also parodies Melville, Hawthorne, and other American writers, and weaves in a weird Cold War conspiratorial theme involving the disappearance from history of an entire baseball league. Well, truth is stranger than fiction. These examples, of course, upper left, the Iron Horse, Lou Gehrig succumbing to the disease named after him. Upper right, Ray Chapman, hit by that submarine ball pitched by Carl Mays, hit in the head and died the next day. Bottom left, Adam Greenberg, Jewish kid from Connecticut, his first day in the majors, hit in the head, and he was never the same again and never made it back to the show. Bottom right, Yale PhD Professor Bart Giamatti went from Yale to president of the NL, then commissioner, and then it was his fate to have to preside over the disciplinary action against Pete Rose, and then Giamatti dies of a heart attack just shortly after ruling against Rose. Any of these stories could have been a plot line for a work of tragic fiction. Poets love baseball. Here's a couple excerpts. There's been a great increase in baseball poetry over the past 40 years. Could it be a yearning to return to that green island in a sea of change, in an unsettling time of labor disputes, drug-enhanced performance, and other factors alienating fans from the sport, or should I say the business of baseball? Poet John Ransom, who's up here on the screen, he says, in the best baseball poems, the poets pay attention to small things, the way Clemente held his head, or how the base stealer picks his moment. These are acts of attention through the microscope of the pastoral, the tiny entire scene set off and concentrated. Some poets need to focus on the seriousness of baseball instead of its joy and zaniness. One writer criticizes this desire to be serious as a killer of many baseball poems. This need to see through the game to something profound and unsentimental. Many poems can treat the game unsentimentally, though. Baseball is the writer's game, endlessly elusive and metaphorical. Elusive meaning containing or making use of indirect references or hints, figurative, symbolical. Metaphorical, something used symbolically to represent something else. Stephen Gould again says, must we wrest profundity from the spectacle of grown men hitting a ball with a stick? Baseball is profound all by itself. Some critics take sports fiction seriously only if it's about something more than sports, or not really about sports at all. They say, bring on the metaphors. Baseball, of course, is America's language. Here's a listing of figures of language that it's become, baseball language that become part of our American language. And I don't know if guys still refer to scoring, but I think they did when I was young. Has language from other sports migrated into America's daily speech? Well, sure. You think of the Hail Mary pass in football, which is an act of desperation. But baseball has been the source of far more words and phrases. The English language is as stuffed with it as Babe Ruth was after one of his hot dog binges. This passion for language and the telling detail is what makes baseball the writer's game, said Esquire magazine. Look at this. In 1860, a political cartoon with baseball themes, including images of Lincoln and Douglas, and it uses language such as put out, foul, shortstop, fair ball, home run, and 3 outs. This was well before the birth of the National League. Such wording must have been widely understood by that time, and the game is being identified as the national game. Baseball has such evocative names, real names, and nicknames. Three Finger Brown, Catfish Hunter, Dizzy Dean, Cocoa Crisp, Shoeless Joe, Van Lingle Mungo. That's a real name. Yeah. Now my favorite baseball name is this guy on the left, Urban Shocker, Yankee pitcher of the 20s. I think it would be a great New York Post headline. Another Urban Shocker. Here's another Napoleon Lajoie, another beautiful baseball name. L was for Lajoie, whom Clevelanders love. Napoleon himself with glue in his glove. Of course, his team was known as the Cleveland Naps for several years. Baseball is the elegiac sport. Definition: expressing sorrow, often for something now past, as in an elegiac lament for departed youth. Giamatti said baseball breaks your heart. It's designed to break your heart. And we know about Lou saying, well, he got a bad break. He still considered himself the luckiest man on the face of the earth. The baseball fan looks back as much as he looks forward. Lawrence Ritter, author of The Glory of Our Time, said the best part of baseball today is its yesterdays. It's our family album. Baseball often symbolizes death and rebirth in literature and poetry. And Roger Kahn set forth the bittersweet nature of a baseball career in The Boys of Summer and the subsequent lives, some tragic circumstances of the players that they encountered. The book title was borrowed from a Dylan Thomas poem, I See the Boys of Summer, which begins, I see the boys of summer in their ruin. Kahn saw the boys of summer in their glory and their ruin. And Ring Lardner wrote these lines in memory of Christy Mathewson, who's died after his lungs had been weakened by exposure to poison gas during World War I. My eyes grow very misty as I pen these lines to Christy. Oh, my heart is full of heaviness today. May the flowers ne'er wither, Maddie, over the grave in Cincinnati, which you've chosen for your final fade away. The fadeaway pitch was Matthews' trademark, now known as the screwball. Skip a little. Simulation. Baseball is a frequent theme. Baseball is a vehicle for assimilation. Baseball is so appealing to writers and diarists because of its long history. Is like a family album, one more extensive than many Americans have for their own family, especially if they were immigrants. A celebrated novel is The Celebrant, about a young New York Jewish kid, Jackie Cap, born Yaakov Kapinski, and his relationship with Christy Mathewson. Jackie feels most American and assimilated when he's out in the ball field. He can't make it, his parents won't let him advance in baseball. He becomes a jeweler and he helps to make beautiful rings for Mathewson. The story darkens and the American dream is tarnished by gambling, which destroys his brother's life. Celebrant is a study in fan psychology. You'll recall that the word fan is likely derived from fanatic. In The Chosen, Chaim Potok uses a baseball game between assimilated Jews and black-hatted Hasidim as a way to illustrate the chasm between the two communities. James T. Farrell wrote a delightful story about his grandmother being a great fan of the White Sox. She's an Irish lady going regularly to Ladies' Day games, doesn't understand the game, but she loves the Bostons because most of her family lives in Boston. And no one can tell her about the game. She said, I know all about the baseball. And throughout her life, she wanted to hear about the Bostons and was happy when they won. And she never really learned a thing about the game. Well, for baseball loss, frustration, and suffering, of course, we have the Brooklyn Dodgers, and we have to wait till next year, and then we have This Is Next Year, finally in 1955, and the ultimate betrayal after 1957, when the Dodgers hightail it to L.A. There's your suffering. Jimmy Breslin, during the early years of the Mets, said the Mets lose an awful lot. Listen, mister, think a little bit. When's the last time you won anything out of life? And the Cubs, of course, many years were waiting for Godot or waiting for the pennant. We've had baseball on stage. Take Me Out, about a star hitter of the New York Empires who comes out of the closet or out of the locker. The play was on Broadway last year again. Maybe you've seen Fences, the August Wilson play, with Denzel Washington's great performance in the movie version about Troy Maxson, former Negro League player, bitterly upset that his timing of his life didn't permit him to get into the majors. And this affects his relations with his wife and his son. And the father and son cannot bond over sports. The father actually thwarts his son's ambition to play football on a scholarship. This work of art provides a counterpoint to much baseball fiction that presents a nostalgic view of the Jim Crow game. Troy says, "I done seen hundreds of ends play baseball better than Jackie Robinson. Hell, I know some teams Jackie Robinson couldn't even make." Different perspective was in the fiction work turned into the film, the Bingo Long Traveling All-Stars and Motor Kings, written by a white author. The ball players, they're being exploited by black owners of Negro League teams. They form an independent barnstorming team. Some critics find the author softens the pain of segregation, the pain so brutally shown in Fences, by too much use of comedy, clowning, and minstrelsy. Fences was more ambivalent than Bingo Long about what was lost to the black community with the end of the Negro Leagues, in addition to what was gained by integration. Amir Baraka, father of the present mayor of Newark, wrote about his childhood in Newark when the Negro League Eagles were at their peak. And he, in his views, integration and the destruction of the new Negro Leagues was another trick pushed by the white man. Was it Joanne mentioned Ethelbert Miller? He's the African-American poet, teacher, and literary activist. Here in his poem, The South Bronx, he wrote, "We lived in the land of broomsticks. Stickball played between cars, manholes for bases. We ran past fire hydrants and caught balls near curbs. Now and then someone smacked a Spalding to a rooftop, making pigeons fly." In Playing Until Dark, he wrote, "When we could no longer see the ball, we walked home sadly, dragging our bats, and sometimes wearing our gloves on our heads, exhausted but happy, the light in our eyes, even stars could see." Fathers playing catch with sons is, of course, the ultimate metaphor or cliche in baseball. There's even a book called I Never Played Catch with My Father, which I identify with because I'm afraid I never played with my father. He was too old for it. Poetry in Motion, of course, Willie Mays on the Great Day in 1951. That's enough poetry for a lifetime there, I think. Dark Side of the Game, back in the 19th century. Of course, killing the umpire was an acceptable category of homicide, at least in the mind of the fan. There's even a poem, "Mother, may I slug the umpire? May I slug him right away, so he cannot be here, mother, when the clubs begin to play." And he says, "Oh, I'll not kill him, dearest mother. I'll only knock him out." Walt Whitman, the great American poet, loved baseball. He said baseball, it has the snap, go, fling of the American atmosphere. And that sounds like a Tinker to Evers The Chance double play. Snap, go, fling. It belongs as much to our institutions. It fits into them as significantly as our constitutions and our laws. is just as important in the sum total of our historic life. He loved baseball, but he didn't like the curveball. He thought it was deceitful. In Twain's book about the Connecticut Yankee, he has the man going back in time to King Arthur's court and trying to teach them baseball instead of jousting because it's less violent. Whitman and Twain, the new and authentically American voices of the 19th century, matured as baseball was itself maturing, and each of them recognized baseball as a pastime reflective of a growing, hustling, boisterous nation, as a theme through which American authenticity could be expressed. The ball field is poetic, of course, and baseball's time is seamless and invisible, a bubble within which players move at exactly the same pace and rhythms as all their predecessors. But I don't know about Mr. Manfred maybe trying to change the pace and rhythm a bit too much. And the ballpark has been called a metaphor for the joining together of rural and urban, rus in urbe, the country and the city. The crowd at the ball game has changed over the years. Then it was white, mostly male, well dressed, all in it together. Now all sexes and colors, sliced and diced and divided by income and class, by luxury boxes and private clubs, and very casual dress, wearing the logo of your team, rooting for laundry, as Jerry Seinfeld said, and in the mall parks of our time. Now, New Jersey's own William Carlos Williams wrote a poem called "The Crowd at the Ball Game," in which he says the crowd is moved uniformly by a spirit of uselessness which delights them. So maybe the unimportance and uselessness of baseball was to him its beauty. Rolfe Humphreys wrote about the polo grounds. Time is of the essence. The shadow moves from the plate to the box, from the box to second base, from second to the outfield to the bleachers. Time is of the essence. The crowd and players are the same age always, but the man in the crowd is older every season. Yes, we are. Do you fans out there remember the point when the players were no longer older than you, but were younger than you? Was that an intimation of mortality? And old men watching baseball, that's been the subject of poetry as well. And baseball does have a problem of an aging audience. How does it feel when the men you cheered in your youth pass away? When names like Aaron and Brock and Ford and Kaline and Larson and Seaver appear in the obituary pages? The athlete himself dies twice, once at retirement and again at the end of their lives. Here's the fellow in work of fiction, a fellow who's desperately trying to hang on, Hector Quesadilla, fictional ball player for the Dodgers. He's so old, he's an abuelo, a grandpa of 4. His wife is begging him to retire. Hang up your spikes, abuelo. He wants one more season. He's no Iron Man. He has shin splints, corns, ingrown toenails, hemorrhoids, and he's played for 5 teams. Gets a last chance to be a hero during an agonizing and record-breaking extra inning game, 30 innings, when he hits a long ball, but his aging legs fail him, and he's thrown out trying for a triple. Baseball has been the subject of haiku, and then the 2 of them are written by Jack Kerouac, the great Beat Generation figure. Empty baseball field, a robin hops along the bench. How cold, late September baseball, the crickets. And one by a Japanese fellow poet, Spring breeze, the green fields tempt me to play catch. Haiku and baseball go well together because nature is an important part of the game. The Japanese people became obsessed with baseball, beisuboru, and they began writing baseball haiku late in the 19th century. Here's another one. Here's a haiku by Mike Dillon. The last kid picked, running his fastest to right field. You boys may remember that the last kid picked for the Sandlot team was usually sent to right field. 1948, Boston Post wrote, "Spawn and sane and pray for rain." Not exactly haiku, but it's poetic. How about Yogi Berra's yogiisms? Are they haiku, or they're just pure poetry? We know some of these examples, and of course we know he didn't say everything he said. The one-word haiku, Ichiro. And here's a poem from 1905 that makes you think of Ichiro. This is by a Japanese poet. The crack of the bat echoes to the sky on cold March mornings when we chase balls on the ice. Year in and year out, through wind and rain, enduring all hardship, we practice our game. Ah, for the glory of our baseball club. Ah, for the glitter it has cast. Pray that our martial valor never turns submissive, and that our honor will always shine far across the Pacific. That's Ichiro and his dad training him obsessively through his youth, absorbing his father's life principles of effort, fighting spirit, patience, and harmony. So, women in baseball, a little bit about then and now. They used to play softball only, like the ladies in the tabletop game on the right side here. And they used to play their baseball wearing skirts, like the famous movie about the World War II era game. There was another women's tradition, the baseball Annie, who used to hang out in the hotel lobby and fraternize with the ball player. But that was then, and this is now. And women now are managing minor league teams. They're serving as GMs. They're coaching. Now they're umpiring in the majors and broadcasting. And they can have a bonding experience with their dad too, like Doris Kearns Goodwin did. And a father can try to make his daughter into a ball player, like in a certain poem, where unfortunately she starts to assume her womanly shape, and he's realized he's defeated, and his dream is dust. Now what? Try to advance my slide. Yep, there's the manager. And this was a woman's analysis of baseball. I'll give you a taste of it. It's about the ball, the bat, and the mitt. Ball hits bat, or it hits mitt. Bat doesn't hit ball. Bat meets it. Ball bounces off bat, flies air, or thuds ground, or it fits mitt. Bat waits for ball to mate. Ball hates to take bat's bait. Ball flirts. Bat's late. Don't keep the date. Ball goes in, thwack, to mitt, and goes out, thwack, back to mitt. And it concludes, it's about the ball, the bat, the mitt, the bases, and the fans. It's done on a diamond and for fun. It's about home, and it's about run. And here's a Valentine. Yours till the pinch hits. Yours till the seventh inning stretches. Yours till pennant races. Yours till pop flies. Yours till the home runs. Yours till the line drives. Yours till the double plays. Yours till batter's box. And a short story by Garrison Keillor. Sweet old Garrison of Prairie Home Companion tells us about the first woman to play in Major League Ball, Annie Szymanski, the anti-Jackie Robinson. She was definitely not interested in being a role model or a credit to her gender. She was an in-your-face character who chewed tobacco, spit, cussed, fought, kneed opponents in the groin, could not care less about public opinion. Well, hey, isn't that how people like Ty Cobb and Pete Rose behaved? So Annie gives fans the finger, and rather than apologize, she just walks out and leaves baseball. Just a word about The Natural, the movie. You know, if you saw the movie and you didn't read the novel, you missed something, because the movie, of course, has a Hollywood ending. Redford is homering to win the deciding game, breaks all the lights, retires to a peaceful life on the farm with his childhood girlfriend and the son, playing catch with the boy. The novel's climax could not be more different. Hobbes has made very poor choices with regard to his life and his women, and he takes money to throw the game, striking out in his last at bat. The word gets out and his reputation is shot. So if you watch a movie, don't assume that you also know the underlying story. But of course, the movie music and the images are fabulous. Baseball's been in science fiction. Old guy like me remembers the Hoboken Zephyrs, a Twilight Zone episode involving a robot pitcher, the mighty Casey, strikes everybody out, wins every game until it's determined that if he doesn't have a heart implanted, he doesn't qualify to be in the league. So he has his heart, and now he has a heart, he has compassion and empathy, and he can't strike out players anymore, so he retires from baseball. And there's other sci-fi involving time travel, baseball time travel, and this novel, The Body Scout, involving a pharmaceutical company which owns a team, and the players' bodies are modified with implants and augmentations and cybernetic parts. And I think in 20 years or so, this will become a reality, unfortunately. And we've had Jolton Joe DiMaggio in the Hemingway story, The Old Man and the Sea. The fisherman says, I would like to take the great DiMaggio fishing. They said his father was a fisherman. Maybe he was as poor as we are and would understand. We all know Paul Simon singing, Where Have You Gone, Joe DiMaggio? The last of the Ogden Nash poems, he couldn't come up with a Z player, so he just wrote Z is for Zenith, the summit of fame. These men are up there, these men are the game. And other poets have just asked us to please leave the game alone, and I really identify with that. In the 19th century, we used no mattress on our hands, no cage upon our face. We stood right up and caught the ball with courage and with grace. It was unmanly to wear a glove. So it is with all changes to the game. Although most are met with objections in prose, not poetry. Here's a poem, The Old-Fashioned Pitcher. How dear to my heart was the old-fashioned hurler who labored all day on the old village green. He did not resemble the up-to-date twirler who pitches 4 innings and ducks from the scene. The up-to-date twirler I'm not very strong for. He has a queer habit of pulling up lame, and that is the reason I hanker and long for the pitcher who started and finished the game. The old-fashioned pitcher, the iron-armed pitcher, the stout-hearted pitcher who finished the game. Now, I objected to T.S. Eliot saying that April is the cruelest month, but he did say the following in one of his other poems: we shall not cease from exploration, and the end of all our exploring will be to arrive at where we started and know the place for the first time. Of course, the batter starts at home, circles the bases, and home arrives back at home, hopefully knowing more than when he started. And the New Yorker magazine shows us the importance of home in baseball. Concluding soon, I want to read a poem that I wrote after being inspired by all this poetry reading and fiction. First time in 60 years, I attempted to write a poem, and this is called L, a baseball elegy. L meaning loss, of course. Oh, Dad, it's been so long since you sat in the polo grounds, that weird old bathtub-shaped barn of a ballpark under Coogan's Bluff, rooting for Marquard and Matty and Merkel and booing Three-Finger Brown. You became an American there. It's so different now. Pitchers don't hit. The fans place bets on smartphones. Don't ask. But the grass is still green. An assembly line of relief pitchers trudge in, but the beer is still cold. The players need accountants and money managers, but the bats are still wooden. The summer game ends in November, but it's filled with as much drama and tension as when the babe called his shot. It's sad that you left us so long ago, and the stars of my youth have passed their time. My boys live far away, and no grandchildren cry out to me, take me out to the ball game. George Carlin explained the difference between baseball and football. That's a very long thing. I'll just, at the end, he says, the objectives of the two games are completely different. In football, the object is for the quarterback, also known as the field general, to be on target with his aerial assault, riddling the defense by hitting his receivers with deadly accuracy, in spite of the blitz, even if he has to use the shotgun. With short bullet passes and long bombs, he marches his troops into enemy territory, balancing this aerial assault with a sustained ground attack that punches holes in the forward wall of the enemy's defensive line. In baseball, the object is to go home and to be safe. I hope I'll be safe at home. Casey, you've all read Casey. There are a number of parodies of Casey. I think they're even collected in a book. The Wall Street Journal had Casey on strike during one of the major baseball strikes. There's Hamlet at the bat. Garrison Keillor had a parody. There's Cool Casey at the bat, Mad Magazine. It's a beatnik version of Casey. And Ahab at the Helm by the great Ray Bradbury. And Mad Magazine, again, in 1889, wrote Baseball at the Bat about baseball striking out with the fans and talking about all the horrendous problems with modern baseball. So that's just a taste of baseball fiction and poetry for you. I hope you'll go on to read some of this yourselves. And it ain't over. It ain't over till it's over. This time it's over. Thank you.
Keith, that was fantastic. Thank you so much. I want to just comment on two things. Number one, Joanne, who I don't think hopped back on the call, mentioned that she has a collection of 80 and growing parodies of Casey at the Bat. And the other thing that I wanted to mention is, I want to pull this up on my phone so that I get it right. In the new Yaku baseball exhibit at the Hall of Fame, Masaoka Shiki's haiku are strewn throughout the exhibit. So I got to see the exhibit when I was up at Cooperstown for induction back in July, which seems like so long ago, but was only less than a month and a half ago. So if you have the opportunity to get there, I highly recommend the exhibit and look at all. There's a lot in there, but keep an eye out for these haikus because they're quite spectacular.
Okay.
Does anybody have any questions for Keith or any comments or anything you'd like to share? You can raise your hand however you want to go about it. Jeff, go ahead.
Yeah, I
wanted to say thank you so much, Keith, particularly for the shout out to Robert Coover. I read that book every year, every spring since it came out. I invented my first dice baseball game back in 1960 when I was 7 years old. So, and then finding Coover, that was fantastic. A great presentation. And Donna, if I may I do a quick thing about the National Baseball Poetry Festival?
Absolutely.
I'm on the Poets Committee for the National Baseball Poetry Festival. You can find it, you can look it up. And there are links now to every poem that has been selected for the first 3 years. Next May will be the 4th annual National Baseball Poetry Festival in Worcester, Massachusetts, the birthplace of Ernest Thayer, who wrote Casey at the Bat. And anyone interested, certainly welcome to submit poetry. I've had a couple of poems selected, and this last year, my artwork was also featured, and you can see photos with Ethelbert Miller and me in front of some of my baseball paintings. So Jay, I'm going to be sending you some artwork too.
Great.
And I want to thank Jay and Joanne for kind of getting me inspired to join SABR. I've known about it since the baseball abstract days and never got around to it. And now here I am finally in retirement, and I'm looking forward to many more years of baseball and the arts. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jeff.
Keith, your presentation was a no-hitter, marred only by the error of us getting knocked off.
Oh, good. At least it wasn't my. Last time I did a Zoom, my own system failed. At least it wasn't mine this time.
It was not yours, and this is the first time that this has ever happened. So, Seamus, like you said, there may be some setting now in SABR that, in the SABR Zoom that's causing issues. I'm going to look into that with Jacob. So
Good.
I just want to, if nobody else has any other questions or comments, I just want to take a moment to just plug a couple of upcoming events, both virtual and in person, that SABR Elysian Fields has coming up. This presentation was a great example about how baseball is really about more than what happens between the lines. And SABR Elysian Fields is about celebrating the game in as many different ways as we can. One of the things that we're trying to do is for those who like to celebrate the game through writing and research and sharing that writing and research, we've introduced something called the Researcher Series. And we have the 3rd installment of that coming up on September 23rd. And our guest is going to be Tim Wiles, who was the head librarian at the Baseball Hall of Fame for a while and left that position to run the Guilderland Public Library system for 10 years. Tim is going to be with us to talk about how to take advantage of local public libraries and have them help you with your research. And he's also going to be talking about some institutions of higher learning that have substantial baseball collections that are open and available to the public. So that'll be on September 23rd. Following Tim's presentation, we will stop the recording and offer people the opportunity to share any ideas that they have about research that they would say, hey, do you think this would be well received? Or I'm kind of stuck. I need some help. We're just a community of people here to help each other in any way we can share our joy of baseball. So that is September 23rd via Zoom. October 22nd via Zoom, Jerry Eisenberg, by popular request by both Jerry and members of our chapter, will be back with us to reminisce more about his time growing up in New Jersey and sharing some more baseball stories. I've got some other stuff in the works I'm not going to announce dates on yet. Remember, in person, October 26th, we will be at the Yogi Berra Museum and Learning Center to watch a screening of The Diamond King, which is a movie about the history of baseball told through the artwork of Dick Perez. It's very much like It Ain't Over, the Yogi Berra documentary that I highly recommend if you haven't seen it. This isn't just a baseball story, and it's not just a history story. It's a story about family ties and respect for one's mother. It's an immigrant story. It's a story about looking to reach the pinnacle of success in your chosen profession. Dick Perez and filmmaker Mark Evans will be joining us for a discussion and a Q&A. And there's also a set of 8 jumbo 5x7 baseball cards that have been created to commemorate this event. I'll be sending out an email about those shortly. I'm just waiting for the Yogi Berra Museum website to be updated with the link. Those are going to be available for purchase and pick up at the museum. And then lastly, for now, November 16th, as I mentioned earlier, our chapter is in the midst of celebrating the 20th anniversary of our founding, and we've got a luncheon coming up. Members, non-members welcome. That's November 16th. Our keynote speaker will be Ed Randall, New York tri-state area TV and radio personality, who's also doing work now for MLB Network and has a show now on Sirius XM. And the entertainment is going to be provided by Ed Ahlstrom, the Yankee Stadium organist. That event does require prepayment and reservations. So if you're interested in attending, please shoot me an email, thelensofdonnam@gmail.com. And let me know that you'd like to join us. The deadline to RSVP for that is October 15th. But if you know you're coming, please don't wait till the last minute. Let me know now. Thank you. And that is it. I thank everybody so much for joining in and coming back after that boot snafu. Keith, thank you again for that wonderful presentation, and have a great night, everybody. And let's go watch some baseball.